We're ready for the start. They're off.
Express Bet first call on the air. Jeremy Plonk, Jeff Siegel with first bet and Express Bet. We are set for a weekend of racing where Jeff is headed to Northern California. You get to fly with Zoe. Does she share peanuts? Does she take the armrest? Do we have any intel?
I'm actually tagging along. It's kind of a private thing we're taking, so I've never been on it. But I'm not going Southwest. I'm going on some other airline that I never heard of. Hopefully, we get there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Gold Rush weekend. It's going to be. I've obviously handicapped the card for Saturday already, and it looks like a great card at Golden Gate Fields. Used to go there when I was going to college up north, and so it brings back memories. I first went to Golden Gate Fields 53 years ago. So I'm still a kid when I go back there every time I go back once a year, and looking forward to that, and good racing around the country as well.
Yeah, San Francisco Mile, the headline race. That's also the race of the week this week with Express Bet and First Bet. So we're going to talk about those stakes races and more from Golden Gate. And we've got a lot of venues around the country we're going to hit, Jeff. Let's take a look at the schedule we've got for the 8 races this week. We're only going to 6 different tracks. We've got Laurel back in action. We'll look at the Dahlia Stakes. To Oaklawn, 3-year-old sprinters in the Bachelor as their meet starts to wind down. At Churchill Downs, they kick up their heels for the first day of racing with the Roxalana Overnight Stakes. Aqueduct will have the memories of silver, fingers crossed on the turf. Looks wet on the East Coast this weekend. Golden Gate Fields, we'll look at the California Derby, the San Francisco Mile. And at Santa Anita Park, we'll have the Providencia and the Santa Maria. So those are the stakes on the schedule for our handicapping this weekend. And Jeff, it's Kentucky Derby time. We've got the Derby wager guide from First being released around 5 o'clock Eastern on Friday. So looking forward to getting that information out to the public today. Preakness Future Bet actually begins wagering today, a new wager where you can play at Express Bet and First Bet in locations all around the country. If you got a horse you like for the Derby, you think they may go to the Preakness. If you got a new shooter for the Preakness you're already looking forward to, time to shop around a little bit on odds. That wager will stay open not only this weekend, but all the way through 6 o'clock on Kentucky Derby Day. So you can look at your Preakness possibility up until about 45, 50 minutes before they leave the starting gate for the Kentucky Derby. So a new wager there, something to get interested in. We'll talk about that and some other promotions around First Bet and Express Bet this weekend. But we're here to handicap, right? So let's get you on the road with a few winners before you head out of town, Jeff. Let's go to Laurel Park for the Dahlia Stakes. Now, Laurel Park has canceled racing in recent weeks because of some surface issues. They've been resolved with a third-party contractor coming in to verify the safety of the racetrack. So Laurel racing will resume at the at the request of the racetrack and also the horsemen with their granted permission, if you will, that both sides have agreed that the track racing surface is safe to go again. And so we'll get that on Saturday with the return of racing to Laurel Park. Many of the stakes races scheduled for last week were brought back this week. One of those is the Dahlia Stakes, and it'll go as race number 8, Jeff. The Dahlia for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. This will be a prep for the Gallarette Stakes coming up on Preakness weekend. 1 mile on the turf in the Dahlia. Who'd you end up with in this one?
Well, Graham Motion's got 2 in here, but one I don't think he's going to run them both. This Carol Ann, I think, will probably run in this race. Sopran Basilia also entered at Keeneland. I don't think he's going to run them both in the same race when he's got another option. But Miss Carol Ann is intriguing to me, interesting filly, Kingman filly. She ran in the Pebbles last September off the plane, and she finished 6th at B2 lengths. But if you look at the race shape, the race flow, 49-2 for the first half, 46-4 for the second. She didn't have a whole lot of chance to close ground, but she was very willing in the stretch. You wouldn't know it just by looking at the line, but she was firing. She just had too much to do. Yeah. Then they stop on her, bring her back. She returns. Series of works at Fairhill should have her fit. And her form overseas the last year as a 3-year-old in decent handicaps and carrying a lot of weight, pretty good, and her time form numbers were good too. So I think she can beat this field if she's ready. And you know how well Graham does off the bench. I mean, he sends them fit and ready. 5-1 in the morning line. I like Miss Carol Ann really to win the Dahlia. I know the outside box isn't great, but she'll drop over, get some cover, and hopefully take home.
Yeah, and I'll tell you just some news there. Just a few minutes ago, the scratches came out for the Bewitched Stakes at Keeneland today. Sopra and Basilia has scratched just a few minutes ago. So check the app with Equibase as we were talking here. So that one comes out. Graham will probably run two in there. Nadalia, no wet conditions expected at Keeneland for the racing today. Might have had something to do with it. So hopefully they'll get better weather at Laurel. Big card at Laurel Park on Saturday. Good to see them back in action. Let's go to Oaklawn next on our schedule for the Bachelor Stakes. If you thought the Oaklawn meet had a lot of 3-year-old stakes from the Smarty Jones to the Southwest to the Rebel to the Arkansas Derby, they just keep coming. It's the Bachelor Stakes now. In fact, they added the one in the spring or in the December, I think called the Mistletoe Stakes, something like that. Then they added the Oaklawn Invitational, which got renamed the Bathhouse Row that we saw last week here on the show. Another 3-year-old stakes. Plenty of opportunities for the 3-year-olds to run at Oaklawn, Jeff. And the Bachelor is for the sprinters. Which one of them did you come up with?
Yeah, it's a good point that you made about the 3-year-olds at Oaklawn. And sometimes when they have a lot of stakes, it kind of thins out. But I haven't seen that. I mean, these are competitive races. Yeah. And Mo Strike, who I ended up picking here, we have not seen him since last September. He's now a 3-year-old. Uncle Mo Colt won his debut, so we know he can run well fresh. He won that at Churchill. Came back and then won the Sanford. Looked good. And then in the Hopeful, he was a distant fourth in that race. Something must have gone amiss because they had to put him away. But I thought his first start was good. I thought his second start, the Sanford, was good. I think he can outclass his field if he's ready. And again, 24% for Brad Cox with layoff runners. I would have to think Mo Strike would be ready, and I would have to think he would be good enough if he runs back to his Saratoga form.
Let's take a look at him at his best in the Sanford last year.
In between horses is Mo Strike. 3 of them across the track. Prove Right on the extreme outside. Down at the rail is Great Navigator. Looking for a way through is Major Dude. The half went in 45-4. Here is Mo Strike. Here is Andiamo a Firenze. Andiamo a Firenze and Mo Strike. They are right together. Then Great Navigator and Curly Jack. They're coming on for the finish in the Sanford Stakes. And it's going to be Mo Strike to win it here by 3 lengths.
So Brad Cox, embarrassment of riches with the Kentucky Derby with 4 potential starters, and he's got horses for sprint races like Corona Bolt. This is another one in the sprint ranks for him. Absolutely loaded with his current 3-year-old crop. We'll see how the Derby scene shakes out and all those Triple Crown undercard races because, you know, you've got races at Pimlico like the Chick Lang. You've got the Woody Stevens on Belmont Day. There are places for his 3-year-old sprinters to go after this. That'll be big money events, and we'll see if Mo Strike isn't back into that mix, maybe getting ready for something like the Woody Stevens or the Chick Lang. Let's go next on the program from Oaklawn Park. We're going to switch to Churchill Downs. Closing day at Keeneland today on Friday as we tape the podcast. Opening day at Churchill tomorrow. Just 7 days out from the Kentucky Derby. We don't have the old Derby trial like we used to, Jeff. It seemed like ancient history that horses would run like a week before the Derby and then come back and run in the Kentucky Derby. But Don't Get Mad did it for Ron Ellis in this lifetime, right? That was like 2004, 2005, right. Something like that. It wasn't like it was ancient history, but nobody's running back on a week anymore. So the stake schedule at Churchill gets off to a little bit softer start. Plus, they have live racing like Tuesday through Saturday, Derby week, a ton of stakes. So we get an overnight stakes, the Roxalana, for opening day at Churchill Downs. So let's take a look at this race. It's 175 grander, and, you know, it's just the listed stakes, but the headliner in here, Frank's Rocket, Jeff, she's no listed filly. She's one of the best filly mare sprinters in the country.
She's never really been quite a grade 1 type, but boy, she cleans up in these lesser races. And speaking of the Derby trial, by the way, back in the day, you mentioned they used to have the Derby trial a week before. I got news for you. Back in my day, it used to be Tuesday before the Derby. They did, right. And a lot of horses used it. They'd run a mile on Tuesday and then come back Saturday for the Derby. That's why it was called the Derby trial. And we don't make them like we used to, these horses anymore. You know, that horses probably would go to court with a injunction if they knew they had to run now Tuesday before the Kentucky Derby. But back then they were tough old horses. And
correct me if I'm wrong though. Even in Ali Sheba's time, the Bluegrass was 8 days before the Derby.
Right,
Wasn't it Friday before the Derby? It was run on a weekday, 8 days out from the Derby when Ali Sheba ran in the Bluegrass and then came back.
It doesn't seem that long ago, but it was like almost 40 years now.
That's sad when we say it doesn't feel that long ago, and then you do the math and you're like, hell, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Anyway, Frank's Rocket, I mean, she's won 11 out of 26, but 9 seconds and 3/3. That's amazing. She's been in the money 23 out of 26 starts. And every time they run her in races like this is not even a greatest stakes, which is one of the reasons why she's 3-5 in the morning line. She always seems to come through. And yet when they run her in a race like the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint, even though on Speed Figure she's right there with them, she doesn't seem to be able to rise to the occasion. But when she's spotted against this group, she always seems to win. And obviously no gamble here, but she's had a triple-digit buyer number in 5 out of her last 6 starts, so that's how good she is. And again, she's just going to go about her business and win this race at a short price, but she's fun to watch. She's a fun mare and she's 6 now. I don't know how many more races she'll have, but it's nice that they chose to keep her in training, and we get to enjoy her another year.
She looked as effective as ever in her most recent outing down at Gulfstream. Here's Pete Aiello.
Alvarado starts to ask Frank's Rocket to do some work. She's third and gaining ground. Up to fourth, Dry Faros, then Colorful Mischief as they round the far turn. Here's the move from Frank's Rocket, and she's front and center with a power sweep to the lead. There's a quarter of a mile left to go in the Hurricane Birdie, and Frank's Rocket is under cruise control with a 4-length lead. Our Adios jersey battling fire on time, then Dry Faros and Colorful Mischief with an 1/8 of a mile to go. Take a look at her, folks. She's a high-quality filly. She's Frank's Rocket, and she's going to win the Hurricane Birdie in style. Geared down and posing for the picture, she won by 7.
We'll take her to the bank in the stakes race at Churchill, the Roxalana. Let's go next to the Memories of Silver at Aqueduct. Again, this race scheduled for the turf at 1 mile, $100,000 for the fillies and mares, but there are 3 main track only entries in this race, which ought to tell you they've been looking at the forecast, right? There's a decent chance this race could come off the turf. Rain expected in the Northeast over the course of the next several days. We'll see if they can get this race in. It's probably another reason why they moved it up to race number 2 on the card. They're probably expecting a lot of scratches in this race to scratch down. But from a standpoint of if we get it on the turf, Jeff, let's handicap it the way it looks on paper and let Mother Nature do what she does. Who do you like in this one?
Well, I hope she gets a chance to run, but if she doesn't, I'm sure that Chad Brown will have royalty interest back in the entries in some shape soon. A French-bred filly who made her debut at Tampa. And I'm not totally sure why, how he decides who goes to Tampa and runs and who stays at Gulfstream. It just might be a timing situation. But royalty interest, I thought visually, and again, I'm not sure she's beating a whole lot, but man, you can't get much more impressive than this. And this filly looks like yet another in a long list of young European horses that Chad has been buying in some of these breeze-up sales and things like that. And I really think that this is going to be a high-quality filly, even though you wouldn't necessarily know it simply by her win in Tampa Bay. So if she runs, great. I think she'll win. If she doesn't, then we'll just wait for next time. But this is one to put down. I think she's going to be really good.
Here's what Royalty Interest looked like in her career debut, March 11th at Tampa.
Royalty Interest starting to get going, is 4th right now and only 2.5 off the top as they wind around to the quarter pole. Galileo's Jewel, Little Miss Moonlight preparing for the oncoming challenge of Royalty Interest. Here's Royalty Interest out 3 deep to come after the leaders as they spin into the stretch. Between horses, Little Miss Moonlight. Royalty Interest down the outside, and Royalty Interest takes off for home. Justifiable Bell trying to run on with Volatility down the outside, but at the 16th pole, Royalty Interest is bounding clear. Royalty Interest and Irad Ortiz going to wrap up the card here. Festival Day, they win it by 3.5.
All right, so that's Royalty Interest. She's appearing on Saturday, hopefully, weather permitting, at Aqueduct in the Memories of Silver. Okay, next up for us is the 2 stakes races that will handicap for Golden Gate Fields. We'll look at the California Derby and also the San Francisco Mile. Big day of racing, Gold Rush Day, guaranteed pools in the multi-race wagers. You've got hit and splits with the pick 4s and pick 5s when you bet them with Express Bet and First Bet. That means you hit the pick 4, you hit the pick 5 this weekend in Southern California at Santa Anita or at Golden Gate. You'll win not only your pari-mutuel winnings, but you'll split $4,000 or $5,000 with other players who hit those sequences when they bet with First Bet and Express Bet. So a great way to bump up your winnings. Jeff, we got to get him to the winner's circle, though, first. So let's start with the California Derby. It's race number 10 on the program. one of two big stakes races for the 3-year-olds each year at Golden Gate. Of course, they've got the race in February, the El Camino Real Derby. Now, these are the horses not potentially headed to the Preakness like the El Camino Real Derby has the win and you're in. These are more of your synthetic and turf type horses in this race. Who do you like?
Well, I like number 2, Harson here, and here's the case. He won his first 2 starts sprinting, and in both races, I thought he was pretty impressive. He won as a 2-year-old easily, comes back in January, wins again, earns a very strong 82 Beyer speed figure, and looks good doing it. And then they stretch him out to the 1.125 El Camino Real Derby, which is, for Golden Sense, it's it might be stretching your limit a little bit. And I think they felt that maybe the distance might be a little far. So what do? They grab her. Oh, we're going to make him go a mile and 8 by taking his speed away. Yeah. And he's sitting second, where by all rights he should have been in front. And then he tries in the stretch, but his best weapon was taken away from him. So he kept on. He finished a good third. I thought if they just let him roll, he could have won. Yeah. Bring him back in another mile race, an allowance race, which is essentially the same horses here. And once again, they kind of take him back. And he tries in the stretch. He's kind of green. He's lugging in and all that, but he runs well. Now, inside post blinkers go on. Thank you very much. Just let him roll. Let him run everybody into the ground. I think he can get the distance, but I think you got to let him show his speed, his best weapon. So I'm banking on the fact that that's going to be the strategy. And if Harson makes the running here, I think he keeps going. So I like him at 4-1.
He got beat in the El Camino Real Derby by Chase the Chaos, who's back in this one. It kind of a blow up in the San Felipe trying to dirt for that one. So even though he won the win and you're in for the Preakness in the El Camino Real Derby, probably unlikely to even try that. Not Triple Crown nominated, so he would take a big supplement to even make the field at that point. But he's a Pennsylvania bred and one of 2 big stakes winners in the Pennsylvania breds this year. Of course, Angel of Empire, the Arkansas Derby winner, a PA bred. So you know where my heart's at, Jeff. I'm going to lean on those Pennsylvania breds there. Chase the Chaos. He was good to me in the El Camino Real Derby, too. I had him at 4-1 that day. So he owes me nothing at this point in time. That's for sure. To the San Francisco Mile we go. It's race number 11 on the card Saturday at Golden Gate Fields. This is the main event. Biggest race of the year in Northern California. Grade 3, $250,000, $250,000 on the line for these turf milers. It's our express bet race of the week. You can get my full write-up on this race when you sign up for the email newsletter each week with express bet and first bet. Jeff, I'm on Balikoff in here. I don't know if you agree with me, but I think this horse on his best is awfully good. He's got to come from off the pace, so that sometimes gives you a little bit of trepidation whether or not he'll get there. But I think he can beat this field, and I like Balikoff a lot on Saturday.
Well, he's a closer, and I think he's going to have enough pace to chase you. Now, Bob and Jackie and Lamplighter Jack are both speed horses, and I don't think either one of them can win sitting second, if you know what I mean. They both need to be in front. And I think they'll, if nothing else, they'll ensure an honest pace. Maybe not blazingly fast, although that certainly would be nice to see if you like Balikoff. Now, I ended up picking Balikoff here. And again, this is what the workout did for me, because I thought he was flat in the Kilroe Mile, but he's the horse on the outside here in this breeze. That's a very fast horse inside of him and Motorious. Yeah. And I like the way Balikoff is breezing through the lane. This is not a race. He's not trying to win it, but he's trying to finish up. And you can see he's in very good rhythm here. He's breezing. He's getting to that speed horse who's also going easily. And he's going to finish, bobbing heads at the wire. But this tells me, I think, that Balikoff is perked up again. He's maybe better now than he was earlier in the winter. I like this work. And this tells me that, especially considering that he's working with such a good horse and doing it so easily, that Balikoff is ready to bounce back and run back to that nice win at Keeneland that he had last fall in a grade 3, which I thought was, if repeated, would be good enough to beat this field.
And the other horse in here that could really help him out is Il Bellator, because he's got the ability to get up into that mix a little bit. And so if he can pressure those 2 other speed horses, then it really sets up for a closer. When you get that third horse in a speed duel, then you've really got something going for the late runners there. So I think there's enough pace, like you said, to at least be honest and give him every chance to make his run. But if Il Bellator gets up into the mix, then I think then it even advantages him coming from the back of the pack, Balikoff. And you give the best horse in the race the best pace setup, and they usually don't give it back. And Reese Bully going up to ride him there. I'll take Balikoff with Phil D'Amato going north for $250,000 in the San Francisco Mile. Let's go to Santa Anita on Saturday. And we talked about those hit and splits on the pick fours and pick fives at Golden Gate. That also transfers over to Santa Anita on Saturday. So be sure to look at the pick fours and pick fives this weekend in Southern California as well. The Providencia Stakes, Jeff, is race number 3 on the program Saturday. It's a mile and an eighth on the main track. So they're going to make one long run to the first turn, and you've got, a small enough field size. Post position shouldn't be a big deal here. Long run into the first turn, smallish field. This should give everybody a chance that the best filly can win this one. Who might be best?
Well, Ancient Peace is a really talented filly. I just hope that she allows herself to be as good as she's capable. Very impressive when she broke her maiden, and then she comes back in an allowance race and kind of runs off the page there. And I really thought she went way too fast for her own good early on. And watching the race, I thought at the 3/8 pole, okay, she's going to collapse.
Right.
But she never did.
Yeah.
And again, on dirt, but I think she's going to relax better on grass. I hope anyway. And if she can switch off and make the running here and not blaze away and run off, I think she'll just run this field into the ground. I think she's a really, really good daughter of Warfront. And all she needs to do is learn how to, drop her head and gallop out of there and then keep going. And I think if she can do that, she's got a chance to be a lot better than just this race.
Yeah, Graham Motion trainee last year. She came out this year in her first start of the year for John Sadler, and here's what it looked like.
It's Ancient Peace still with a double-digit advantage. Active Serendipity on the inside of Precious Baby, and they're followed by Chloe's Crown. It's a one-horse race as Ancient Peace gallops through the lane. Chloe's Crown angles out trying to complete the exacta, but that's all she'll do. Ancient Peace is in another league. She is absolutely ambling through the stretch, the easiest of Flavien Prat's 3 victories. Geared down Ancient Peace by 7 lengths.
To quote Trevor Denman, they'd have to sprout wings in that one, I think, Jeff, and also a jetpack, I think, in addition to the wings to get her that day. She was highly, highly impressive. Now, that was an off-the-turf race, right? Scheduled for the turf, went to the main track. So you do get blowouts in that situation sometimes because there's horses in the race who really don't belong there. Field size gets all screwed around, because of scratches and things like that. Nevertheless, highly impressive. And she looked good before that race, right? So that wasn't like just out of the blue.
One thing about her is she's a Canadian bred. So I asked John after the race, do you have any designs on the Woodbine Oaks? Or, if she can go a mile and a quarter, how Phillies do in the Queen's Plate. Yeah. And he said, I don't know about the Queen's Plate, but that's a mile and a quarter. But he says they're definitely going to look forward to taking her to Canada for some of those rich Canadian bred fillies. I don't know what they've got in Canada, but they better have their running shoes on if they're going to beat her when she shows up.
Well, the good thing about the Canadian angle is the Woodbine Oaks is run like a month before the Queen's Plate. And a lot of times the fillies will run in that race, run really well and punch their ticket to the Queen's Plate. So it's not like Oaks Derby here in the U.S. where you got to decide between one of the two. You can't run in both a day apart. Woodbine, you can actually run in both. So that could be something. They go up for the Woodbine Oaks. If she blisters that field, then maybe on to something bigger and better, but she's got to get through the Providencia on Saturday, first things first. Also Saturday at Santa Anita, race number 9 is the Santa Maria Stakes, Grade 2 company in here. And the headliner is Adair Manor. Her comeback race at Santa Anita wasn't as good as you had hoped when she got beat at 4-5, going 7/8. They stretched her out the mile, and she had to work hard for the money, but she got there last time.
At the top of the stretch, Adair Manor and Big Switch. Adair Manor ahead in front. Big Switch working hard on the outside, trying to get by Adair Manor, who's still full of run on the inside. It's Adair Manor and Big Switch. Adair Manor, 3/4 of a length. Big Switch, valiant, trying so hard, but Adair Manor was too strong and beat her by about a head.
So we get the rematch. Those two are back again. Jeff, do you think it's one of those or a fresh face?
No, I think we'll see the same thing, really. And I was actually surprised that Adair Manor won that race, given how it was run, because I've always liked Adair Manor. I know she's got a lot of talent, but I never thought she was all that genuine, quite frankly. I thought if she could win off like she did when she won the Las Virgenes by 13 and looked like King Kong doing it, and she'd won her previous race by 12, that's how she would win a race. But if you look her in the eye, that's when she kind of waves the white flag. I had seen that. So when she got hooked at the 8th pole, I was fully expecting her to back out of there, but she didn't. She showed me guts and courage and a willingness to win that I didn't know she had. And she earned a career top buyer speed figure in the process. She beat a perfect tripper in Big Switch, who was a very solid filly in her own right. Mm-hmm. She showed me something there at Manor, and now they meet again. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see the same thing. Adair Manor has got maybe a tad more tactical speed. Maybe she'll be in front, and Big Switch will stalk her. But I do think they're going to hook up again at the 3/8 pole, and it'll be fun to see if Adair Manor can build on that last confidence-building win and do it again.
She got to the wire first last time under Juan Hernandez, who is her new rider. Some news yesterday on the Triple Crown front is Skinner, a horse you and I both have had some fondness for going back to last summer, has got into the Kentucky Derby field on the heels of the tragedy which happened with Wild on Ice yesterday at Churchill Downs. So sad for the connections of Wild on Ice. Skinner does get into the field. The interesting thing, and the reason why I bring it up now, is Juan Hernandez was named to replace Victor Espinosa. This is something you and I talked about on our podcast here over the past month or so, that Victor, for as good as he is, Triple Crown winning jockey, multiple Kentucky Derbies, he's always been better up on the front, and he's not Eddie De La Houssaye with a horse from behind. Skinner moved too soon in the Santa Anita Derby. We both talked about that. So now Juan Hernandez is going to get a chance to replace a three-time Kentucky Derby winner in Victor Espinosa in the Kentucky Derby. What do you make of the brazen jockey change there? I kind of like it.
Well, look, Juan Hernandez has won like 60 some odd races this year. I think Victor's won 3, and this is the Derby. And it's good to be loyal and all that. And I that's part of the game where you've got a guy like Victor who's ridden Skinner in all of his races. I think though that there's only one Derby, and if you got a chance to get Juan Hernandez, who may not have the national name that some of the other big time riders have, Pratt and the Ortiz brothers and those kind of guys, he is a fantastic rider, and I think he'll have a chance to breeze Skinner this weekend to get to know him. But I like Skinner. When the guide comes out this afternoon, I had him in my top 4, and that was before I even knew if he was going to get into the race. Well, right. He's in the race, and now you throw in Juan Hernandez in there, and then you look at his race in the Santa Anita Derby, and we talked about Skinner and how he was always taking the worst of it on this racetrack. Mm-hmm. Man, I don't know what price he's going to be, Jeremy, but he's going to be on my ticket somewhere. I promise you that.
Maybe 30, 40 to 1. He's got to be 30 to 1, and and that's just fine. That's just fine. Take that price every day and twice on the first Saturday of May. So Skinner in, Juan Hernandez, the news there. And again, that's why we brought it up at that time as we were talking about the Santa Maria Stakes, is Juan has done a good job with the Adair Manor, giving her some more confidence and finishing ability. Like you said, she's now finishing races, and no knock on the previous jocks. They were like Hall of Famers like John Velasquez, right? But sometimes a horse and rider are just a good fit, and sometimes they're not a good fit. And I never thought Victor fit the style of Skinner just right. And so I'd like to see this change, and I think Hernandez will be a much better fit. And Victor's going to win some other big races. He's not done and washed up completely in his career by any stretch. He's having a rough go of it this year. But I'll trade the old Derby wins and experience for a better style fit and a rider who's going as great as Juan Hernandez is right now. So I think it's a positive jockey move, even though, the headline will say 3-time Derby winner taking off horse, that kind of deal. But I'm for the move that they made. That's going to wrap up our handicapping for this Saturday program. Kentucky Derby news and notes all over the place when you follow Express Bet and First Bet. We've got the wager guide coming out later today. Worked with Eddie Olczyk last night, and we recorded a lot of contender videos. So you're going to get Edzo's take on 10 of the major contenders for the Kentucky Derby. Follow those at the websites and on social media channels as well. They'll start running soon. Jeff and I are going to do 2-minute videos for the greatest 2 minutes in sports that will preview in short snippets the Kentucky Derby field each day as we get through Derby week next week, where we take a look at the pace, the long shots to look for, everything you want to know in kind of a vignette format. Follow those on social minutes, our 2 minutes videos beginning next week. So we've got a lot going on, Jeff. I know you've got to get on the road to Golden Gate. Fabulous trip up there. Wish the best of luck to you and everybody sending in at Golden Gate. We'll have Matt Dinnerman's picks up on the website as well. Frank Carulli looked at the late pick 4 in the blog section for Golden Gate Fields on Saturday. So Frank's dialed in on those races as well. A lot of good handicapping coverage for you across the channel. And of course, you still have your Santa Anita stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm busy this week. I've got Santa Anita's analysis, full card, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'll be with Zoe, as you mentioned, on the simulcast show, so you can tune us in on the simulcast show. Go to the Golden Gate Fields website to watch that, or you can watch it on the RTN network. And we're prepared. I can tell you that we are going to be attacking the races at Golden Gate Fields both Saturday and Sunday. I think they might even have us on later this afternoon too for the late pick four. I've heard rumors about that, but fortunately, I've done enough work. So if they throw me on the stage, I'll be able to fake it if nothing else. But no, it's going to be fun. And so again, play Golden Gate Fields this weekend up north. Stakes races all over the place, and they're very competitive. There's no 1 to 2 shots on these races. You can make some money. So we'll see you up there. And then when I get back Sunday night, we'll dive into Derby week. And as you mentioned, Jeremy, we'll have lots to offer video wise and written wise, and we'll update our guide and all that other stuff, good stuff. So it's going to be busy, but it's going to be a fun busy.
By the time we reconvene Tuesday for the It's Official podcast, the fields will be known for the Kentucky Derby and for the Kentucky Oaks. Double draw on Monday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern for the Derby and the Oaks. So we're going to know everything we need to know the next time we get back in touch with you. Lay off the caviar and the champagne on that private jet, because I know Zoe only goes in style. So if they're going to have you on the simulcast feed later today, Jeff, you got to take it easy on that private jet. All right, buddy?
Right. I'll just I'll follow Zoe's lead. She's the party girl.
That's what you don't want to do. You don't want to follow.
No, I know. I mean, I always tell Zoe, do everything that I wouldn't do to have fun. So we'll see what happens.
Have a good time. Good luck up there in Northern California. On behalf of everybody with First and my partner Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Good luck at the races. We'll talk to you on Tuesday when we come back on It's Official.